Okay, we're live. We're off the mark. We're good to go. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Level 1 Vocational Studies course, where we're looking at understanding and eventually overcoming barriers that we face to health, well-being, good food choices, and all sorts of sort of personal fitness and wellness. There's barriers that gets in the way. We all know how good exercise is for us, and you know the benefits of eating our fruit and veg and stuff like that, but there's always seems to be stuff that gets in the way. And maybe you're finding that a little bit more this time of year. You know, maybe you've got yourself a New Year's resolution, or maybe, you know, not necessarily so formal, but maybe you've got a bit of an idea of what you'd like to sort of achieve for the year. Maybe you get a little bit more active, get a little bit more fit, and a little bit more healthy. And now you might be starting to realize, okay, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. And what we're going to do over the duration of this course is to eventually look at those barriers and try and find a way to work around them, how we can reduce them if we can't eliminate them entirely. And I can maybe even pass on a little bit of experience that I've had from working with people in the gym, working with clients before, and just some of the snags that they've sort of come across during their own fitness journey as well, and some of the solutions that we've sort of come up with between us. So we've got a lot to look forward to, and we can actually have a little look at everything that we're going to be covering over the next 12 weeks. Just before we jump into all of that, just some YouTubey stuff, I guess, because of course this is where we're going to be learning. This is where all your sessions are going to be. And this may very well be the first online course that you've done, or the first sort of distance learning that you've done, really. So, of course, as you've probably realized this morning, each week I'll send out a link to each session. So you can just click the link, it'll bring you here. Yeah. If at any point you need or would like all of the previous session links up to that point, sending out, then let me know and I'll get them to you. Once the course is finished, I'll put all of them course links together anyway into an email and send them out to everybody, so you can always go back and revise something, or, you know, revisit something if you just want to touch up on that knowledge and maybe it's just refreshing it in your mind a little bit. So yeah, we've got all sorts coming up, but if I can just direct your attention to under the YouTube video, we have got like a little description box. There might be a little drop down arrow that you need to hit, and then it'll bring up our description box, and it'll tell you obviously that it's by Media Savvy. It'll tell you a little bit about the course. Obviously it's our Level 1 course, and then you'll notice a few extra little bits as well. So we've got a survey in there. So for each session, we need a survey filling in, really. It's not even 30 seconds to fill it in, but for each session, if you click that survey link, it'll take you to where you need to be, put your answers in there, and then the answers come straight back to us. So you've not got to like save it, like download it, fill it in, save it, email it back. None of all of that faff on, really. So nice and easy. Like I say, you can just send it, or it'll come straight back to us. Below the survey, we've got a link for our fitness video. So each session is going to have a fitness video that goes with it as well. And where I can, I've tied in sort of the style of session to whatever we're learning about during the day, or whatever we're covering during that given week. So yeah, today's fitness video, like I say, I'll always sort of at the end of the session, sort of point you in the direction of the fitness video again, sort of go and give it a go once the session's finished. Of course, if you want to come back, even if you watch the session live, if you wanted to come back and watch or do that fitness video this afternoon, this evening, like tomorrow, whenever it might be, it's always going to be there. And it's just something that we can use to hopefully get moving a little bit more, you know. We're probably all on this fitness journey and trying to get ourselves a little bit more fit, a little bit more active, and it can sometimes be tough this time of year, especially when we've got, you know, COVID, or we haven't got restrictions anymore. COVID is still here, and of course there are those among us that are being more careful or need to be more careful still. Perhaps the gym's not an option. Maybe COVID aside, the gym isn't really for you. You know, it's not for everybody. And then, of course, this time of year, the weather can work against us when it comes to walking, running, especially cycling. You know, running and cycling we don't want to be doing when there's potentially ice and stuff like that. So we thought what we can use to keep us moving through winter, through the darker months, through the colder months. We've uploaded, or we've got on our YouTube channel, a playlist of fitness videos, and obviously today's fitness video is one of them. So, like I say, today's fitness video it's just a little 20-minute stretch to just, you know, encourage to get moving again. Maybe it's the first time we're getting active in a while, you know, maybe it's the first time this year, maybe it's just the first time in a decade, you know, or 2 decades. So it's just a way to sort of wake the body up a little bit as well again. You know, you can do too much too soon, and you can put yourself off, and I guess most importantly, you can hurt yourself as well. So a nice little stretch just to warm everything up, get it moving. You know, you could maybe come back and do that again at the weekend, and then by the time we come into next week, your body's moving, and you know it's woke up a little bit, you're a little bit looser. Then next week we can bump that intensity up just a little bit, so they can gradually get a little bit harder as well. Now, if you ever saw, say for example, today's fitness video is a stretching video, and you're thinking, oh, I've stretched this morning when I got up, I want to do a proper workout. If you still follow that link, it takes you to the playlist. You can have a look through and you can pick whatever video you want. You can do abs workout, you can do legs and bum, you can do upper body. There's all sorts on there. I always try and give alternatives. So if you have a bit of a niggle or a bit of a problem with one exercise, or something's a little bit sort of too challenging or a little bit tough where you might hurt yourself, I always try and make sure you've got an alternative to do as well. So in that playlist, there's something for everybody, guys. So even if the weather's bad, the gym's full or expensive, or, you know, we're worried about COVID, we've all got something in there that we can be doing to get moving again, get active, and hopefully stay active as we start to build up these good habits, really, and these good behaviors. So the last couple of bits that you'll find in that description video before we really jump in, we have got, of course, my email addresses there as well. So you'll probably have it already because, of course, I email the session links out each week. If for whatever reason you don't have it, or can't find it easily, it's on every YouTube video in the description. You'll be able to find my email in case you need to get in touch with me, whether it's to send a workbook back or ask me a question or ask for a session or two that you've missed or whatever it might be. So yeah, guys, so my email's in there. We've got a survey for you to do for each session, not even 30 seconds to do. And we've got a fitness video probably ranging from 20 minutes to 30, 35, depending on what the session is, where you can, you know, get active, get moving, and you can be safe in the mind that you're doing things safely as well. You know, you've got a visual demonstration on the screen that I'll be sort of demonstrating for you. If you're doing what I'm doing, you know that what you're doing is right. You haven't got to worry about, oh, what exercises am I going to do? How many am I going to do? How long should I do this for? You know, just stick the video on, do whatever, do what is being shown on the screen, and before you know it, it'll be done, and you haven't really had to think about it too much. You just have to turn up and put the physical work in, which, you know, we all know the importance of that physical exercise and that physical activity. And if we don't, we're going to be recapping it throughout the duration of this course, so fret not. Okay, so I think that's just about everything that I need to cover before we jump in. Of course, last couple of things, we've got links to our social media pages in case you want to find us on there, find out what's going on with upcoming courses, find out what's going on with Media Savvy in general. We've got some exciting stuff going on, even today at the office at headquarters. So yeah, check those out if you want to stay up to date. And we've got a link to our Google Drive as well, a particular folder that will take you to any extra supplementary learner info that you might need, you know, be it the learner handbook, COVID info, safeguarding values and stuff like that, learning safely online, all of that sort of thing is in there if you need it. So that the link where it says drive.google, that's where you need to be for all of that information. Yeah, again, if you're not sure, drop me an email and I'll link you straight to it. Okay, cool. So with all of that out the way, and luckily we don't need to do that every week, that is just for this week. Let's dive into it then and see what we're going to be looking at. So first week, we're going to be looking at the skeleton and its functions, starting to understand human anatomy a little bit more, the way that we're put together, which ultimately explains the way that we move, which can help us understand blood movements and making sure that we're moving well and safely. And understanding the skeleton can help us sort of visualize a little bit more the effect of not having exercise or exercising with bad form and stuff like that might have on the body if we understand the body a little bit better. But in general, like I say, we've got a lot to cover over the next 12 weeks. So let's have a look at what is on the what's on the old drawing board. So we've got, of course, the skeleton and its functions. So what does it do? Why is it important? Why do we need to take care of it? Next week, we'll be looking at the heart and other muscles in the body. So we're going to be looking at the skeleton this week, muscles next week, including the heart, how it works, what's its job. Like I say, how does it do what it needs to do? And again, start to understand the way that our body's working a little bit more. Then we can visualize, again, the benefits of exercising or the sort of negative effects of not exercising as well, just by understanding our own body a little bit more. Massive one, we will be looking at the benefits of healthy eating. So, of course, what do we have to gain by eating healthily, and how to read food labels as well, how to actually pick up a product off the shelves in the shop or wherever it might be, look at something online and be able to look at the nutritional information and make good, informed choices. You know, that's not to say it's to find food that it's to identify food that we can never eat. It's just to be aware of what is the actual quality of the food that you're looking at. Is it something that you could get away with eating every day or should be eating every day? Is it something that you should have in moderation? You know, so when it comes to reading food labels, being able to actually understand what it's telling you can go a really long way. Otherwise, you're looking at numbers without really sort of there's no context to them, I guess. There's no context if you know that there's 20 grams of sugar per 100 grams. Is that good? Is that bad? You know, if we don't know those things, we're not able to pick something up and say, well, that's got far too much sugar in for my liking. I don't want to put that in my body. You know, I don't want to give that to my family. I don't want to give that to my kids or whatever it might be. So, yeah, reading food labels is a big or coming to understand that nutrition side a little bit more is a really big step, because if we can make those good choices in the shop, it saves us bringing something home that isn't that good for us, that we would have stayed away from if we knew what was in it, you know. And then you've got two choices, and that's either eat it or throw it in the bin, which neither one's ideal really, because you know we should be trying to cut back on waste as well. So yeah, food labels we'll get to in a couple of weeks' time. Really helpful, and like I say, something that you can start using from that session. Really, you can start using from that day to start impacting your food choices a little bit. Okay, guys. So as always, like we do with all of our other courses, if you've done some of our other courses, maybe you haven't, there's a live chat feature on YouTube. If you're watching along and wanted to pop something in the chat, whether it's just to say hi, whether it's to ask a question, then by all means do, guys. You know, I've always got one eye on the chat and making sure that, you know, I can, where I can in between slides while people are doing activities or whatever, I can just fire back any answers and engage with you in the chat a little bit as well. So don't worry about sticking something in the chat if you feel like you need to. Even if you're speaking to each other, you know, I really don't mind. If you're watching this session later back in the week, obviously the live chat will update in real time, but obviously there won't be anyone there to answer it. So if you had any questions later on in the week, drop me an email and I'll do exactly the same. Okay then, guys. So beyond that, we're going to be looking at different components of fitness as well. So the word fitness is quite a broad term. So we're going to be discussing what it might mean, different aspects of fitness, and that can help you really start to dial in on the components of fitness that are important to you. You know, it might be strength, it might be cardiovascular fitness or endurance, you know, it could be flexibility, just for moving well. Fitness means something different to everybody really. So we'll explore those components of fitness, and you can start to get an idea which of them are actually important to you or most important to you, and you can focus your goals on that really. I guess all your training, all your exercise, all your food could be geared up towards improving this one thing. Once you've done that, shift your focus and look at something else. Whereas if you're trying to work on strength, flexibility, reaction times, muscular endurance, like all at the same time, it's going to take a long time to get to where you want to be, because you're getting torn between these different goals, these different targets. Whereas focus on one, get it done, move on to the next one, and keep on reflecting on that and keep on adjusting is really important to keeping our fitness journey going, really. So yeah, we'll be looking at different components of fitness, and equally as importantly, how to test them. So if you want to work on your flexibility, for example, how can you test that to know that it's getting better or getting worse, and whether you need to change up your training or your exercise or whatever. So yeah, components of fitness and how to test them. We'll be looking at different heart rate zones and the benefits of training at different levels of intensity and the way that it affects the body. Yeah, and we'll be looking at, like I mentioned, barriers to exercise. So things that could get in the way of exercise and potentially even good food choices as well. Might be things like, I say, childcare, like it costs too much, you haven't got transport to get there, whatever it might be. We all face barriers to exercise, or potential barriers, and it's trying to remove the ones that we can, and maybe try and find a little bit of a compromise with the ones that we can't as well, you know. So hopefully making that consistent exercise and that routine, hopefully make it easier to keep up with less barriers getting in the way. Then after that, we'll be or you guys will be doing your own health and well-being presentation or poster. So picking something that is sort of close to your heart, something that you're passionate about, something that you're interested in, anything to do with health and well-being. It can be a sport, it could be a, you know, maybe it's a medical condition that you know quite a lot about, you know. It could be, like I say, food, anything to do with food. What's your favorite recipes? Could you talk us through that? Do you do meal prep? You could, we've had presentations done on meal prep before. Like I say, anything to do with health and well-being, anything to do with fitness. All it'll be is you have a little bit of time to start planning and preparing. You'll go away, and between sessions, you'll put your presentation together. And then when it's done, all you'll do is jump in a one-to-one Zoom call with me and talk me through it. That's all that we need to do, really. Don't have to deliver it to a group or to the rest of everybody else that's on the course. It'll be one-to-one. You talk me through your presentation, and then that's done. You know, not only does it help us work on our sort of planning skills and our preparing skills and our organization to get everything in place to do it, you know, I can actually work on our confidence when it comes to actually presenting and potentially even sort of like public speaking and stuff like that, or speaking in front of people as well, which, given my experience, I know I haven't found anybody that loves it, you know, in a lot of years. So yeah, something that they're all skills that we can always be working on and always be developing. And as much as anything, I'm interested to see what sort of posters and stuff like that we end up with. Okay, so the last few weeks we will be doing, so once those presentations are done, we're going to be looking at different fitness activities and facilities. So beyond the gym, like I say, the gym isn't for everybody. I might encourage you to actually go and explore your own local area a little bit more. Where's your nearest swimming baths? Where's your nearest park that you could go to for a walk around? Is there public footpaths you can walk on? Because of course, while we're all at home and learning at a distance, your local area will be different from mine, will be different from somebody else's. So just exploring your own area, what's nearby and what have you got at your disposal that you can use, and then you can take it from there going forward, really. Then we'll be looking at how to participate in fitness and exercise safely, looking at health and safety a little bit, and the benefits of warming up and cooling down and why we need to do those. And then we'll be looking at improving your own fitness as well, so getting a little bit of a plan together, about going forward. Are you going to set yourself a little bit of a routine for activity? What does that look like? It doesn't necessarily need to be, gym 5 days a week. Some of it might be a morning stretch, like I say. Some of it might just be running the hoover around. It's just listing the activity that you're going to do or planning to do, and it just helps you stick to it a little bit as well, and gives you a little bit of an idea where to go beyond the end of this 12-week course. So yeah, lots to look forward to, guys. We've got all sorts of interesting topics coming up. We tend to spend a week or so on each, and then we move on. So again, the beauty of us being online, if you ever want to come back and refresh your knowledge, you can come back and you can just rewatch any of these videos and go over any of the information again. By the time we get to week 12, today's session is going to be 3 months behind us. So, it always pays to come back and just touch up on that knowledge again. That's for sure. Right, guys. Okay, then. So let's get into it then. So, right, bear with me 2 seconds. Okay, guys, cool. So having a little bit of a mare with the old PowerPoint there. So if I go from first slide. Okay, guys. So remember, we're talking and thinking about the skeleton and its functions today. That's going to be our focus for today. So have a little bit of a think off the top of your heads before I start rolling through any of them. Try and think about what the function of the skeleton is, or so the skeleton has 4 main functions really that we're going to look at today. But see if you can think of even just one of them. What do you think the skeleton does? What does it do for us? What's its job in the body? What's it there to do? Because skeleton, we all have them, really, unless you're like Harry Potter in the Chamber of Secrets, where his bones disappear from his arm and it just goes like rubber. We need bone. We need bone. We have 206 at adulthood. Anyway, we have 206. Kids are actually born with more bones, and some of them actually fuse together as they grow. You can actually see when we look at the skull later on, it's made up of several sort of plates that sit together and eventually over time fuse together to make our skull as strong and protective as it is. Maybe you've heard about not touching the soft spot on a kid's head or a baby's head or something like that. And again, that is just because some of those plates won't be fully fused yet, which is a little bit mind-blowing, actually. Yeah, some of our bones actually fuse together as we get older. Quite fascinating, yeah. Okay, guys, cool. So, first function of the skeleton is movement. Yeah, the skeleton allows the body to move in different positions. For example, running forwards or backwards. If we didn't have our skeleton, we wouldn't be going anywhere. And if our skeleton wasn't designed, if our skeleton wasn't the way it is, we wouldn't move the way that we do. Yeah, you think how much harder movement would be if our legs from our toes to our hip was just one bone instead of the many different bones. You get no movement. A bone itself can't bend. That movement comes from our joints and where the bones fit together. Yeah. So if we were just one solid bone, we wouldn't move very far at all. So our skeleton and our joints help us move. Yeah. And when we look at skeletal muscle next week, when we look at the muscle that sits on our bones, we can realize how the muscles use our muscles essentially pull our bones into our position that we want to be in. But movement is the first function of the skeleton in the human body. Support and shape. Of course, the skeleton gives shape and support to the body. It stops us from just collapsing. Like we mentioned before, you would be a puddle really without the skeleton, and it gives us our human shape. you know, the same as an elephant's bones give it its recognizable shape, you know, instantly recognizable shape. We are the way that we are, and we are shaped the way that we are pretty much entirely because of our bones, really. It gives us, like I say, a lot of our structure, and says actually stops us crumbling into a heap every time we try and do something. Okay, then, so the third function of the skeleton, as I maybe gave away earlier on, is protection. So the skeleton protects the internal organs like the heart and the lungs from getting injured and damaged. I think I mentioned earlier on the skull. The skull is there to protect. It protects our brain to an extent. It protects our eyes as well. We have our eye sockets. Our eyes don't protrude from our head. They're sunken into our head. They get that little bit extra protection as well, because of course, eyes, when it comes to survival, because that is how our body has developed and evolved, survival of the fittest, really, you know, or passing down the traits that matter the most. So when it comes to avoiding predators and stuff like that, of course, visual sense was really important. You were a little bit of a sitting duck, I imagine, as a blind caveman. So, and the protection for our eyes, our brain, our rib cage, and our breastplate protects our heart and our lungs that sit behind there as well. And our spine actually gives a little bit of protection to our nervous system that runs down your spine. Otherwise, it would just be exposed nerves, really. So yeah, protection is a big job that the skeleton is doing, especially, like I say, the skull and the ribs and the breastplate. Okay, then, and the last one that we've got is actually blood production. We have some what we would classify as long bones, yeah, which is, you know, the sort of bones that you might see in a cartoon. It's got like a long sort of shaft to it, and then it's got sort of like the knobbly bits at each end that you normally see a dog chewing on in the cartoons. We do have bones that look very similar to that, you know. Granted, our skull doesn't look like that, our ribs don't look like that, our shoulder blades don't look like that, but certain bones do, you know. The big bone from our hip down to our knee, it's one big bone. It's the biggest bone in the body, and the biggest single bone in the body is the femur and the upper thigh, or the thigh bone. And in those sorts of bones, in our long bones, we've got a little bit of blood production going on internally, like within the bone. So the skeleton actually helps blood production by producing white and red blood cells, as well as platelets as well, you know. So the skeleton does a lot of different jobs within the human body that we probably take for granted a little bit as well, you know, and not really appreciate, and certainly don't think about on a day-to-day basis as well. Whereas our skeleton is doing this our entire lives, really, you know, just the same as our heartbeats from the moment that we sort of come into existence to the moment that we leave, you know. It's always doing these functions, which is a little bit mind-blowing, really, when we think about it. Okay then, guys, right, so I've got a little activity for us to do now, or I guess for you to do now. So we've got a crossword on the screen, and then we've got the obviously the clues on the right hand side, and we're looking for the proper names for the bones that we can find in the body. Yeah, so of course I've mentioned the skull this morning. There is a more proper scientific word for it, which we'll get to. But just go through the list. Even if you do find it a little bit difficult, you know, doing a crossword on the screen. I don't recommend drawing on your screen, that's for sure. But you know, even just look down the list and see, right, which of these do I know the proper names for? Is there any? Is there some that you think you know but you're not 100% sure? And then when we start looking at the answers, we can get an idea of what's new to you, what have you come across before, what haven't you come across before, and we can get an idea of where our understanding's at. You know, of course, I don't expect anybody to sit there and be able to answer all of these, because right, if you can answer all of these, the next hour is going to be the next hour is going to not really going to be much good to you if you already know the answers. But I'm guessing that there'll be at least one or two on there that we can't get, and then as we're looking through the bones in the body, we can fill in those blanks a little bit. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes. You can have a little bit of a look through, see which of those you feel you might know the answer to, or feel like you definitely do know the answer to, and we'll go from there. So while you are on with that, a fun little fact while we are talking about you know, the functions of the skeleton and the skeleton giving us support. Our skeleton sort of actually needs the weight of gravity, and it needs to support us to stay as strong as it does. If you know, aren't doing so much, don't put as much resistance on your body, you can actually end up with, you know, early onset osteoporosis and stuff like that, where the bone goes to be really brittle because the bone isn't used to supporting you. Astronauts suffer from it a lot in space. Early on in space exploration, you know, the idea was to see what the effect of prolonged time in space was on the human body. For potentially, right, okay, we're going to be going voyaging off outside the solar system or whatever it might be. And one of the first things that they found was without gravity pulling on the body, bone density started to suffer. And astronauts actually ended up with more brittle bones. So it got to the point where they now, astronauts in space have access to weightlifting machines and stuff like that, you know. And when you think it costs, ballpark, I think about £1 million to send 1 pound of weight into space, the fact that they're sending up weight machines tells you how important that actually is. So yeah, we actually need the more resistance we put on our bones, the stronger they actually get, obviously to an extent. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting as well. The lack of gravity and the lack of that force on the human body was making our bones more brittle and more likely to break, rather than, you know, you'd think, oh, gravity's gone, we've taken the weight off our skeleton, the skeleton will be better for it. That's not how it works. It needs that density. And I've actually had clients come to me, again, in the gym over the years, and the main focus has just been to sort of deal with and prevent osteoporosis setting in, really. So another reason why we should be doing our resistance training, lift your weights. It's not just about going and walking on the treadmill, and it's not all about reducing your body fat. You know, we should be going to the gym for more than reducing our body fat. You know, challenge ourselves, try and better ourselves, try and be stronger, you know, try and help the human body do what it was designed to do. It's not just about losing weight. Weight is your relationship with gravity. That is all it is telling you. The number on the scale shouldn't dictate anything else in your life, really, in my opinion. Just focusing on getting better. And for most people, believe it or not, that would usually require a little bit of weightlifting or some weight training. Even the females that were thinking to themselves, oh, I don't want to lift weights because I don't want to get big and muscular, you know. That sort of thing just doesn't happen by accident. And you would definitely probably benefit You can actually burn more calories lifting weights as well than doing our cardio, but I digress. So let's get back to it. So you've had a few minutes to start working through some of these answers. Maybe you've picked one or two out that you knew. Maybe you didn't. You're not sure of the proper name for any of them, and that's totally fine. That's what we're here for. We're here to brush up on this knowledge. We're here to learn it. This was just to get an idea of where our knowledge is kind of going into the session, really. Okay then, so okay guys, cool. So the proper name for the hips, so we'll do the across clues first. The proper name for the hips is the pelvis. Yeah, I guess you've got your hip bone, yeah, which sits sort of probably not too much lower than your belly button, really. Your hip points can be quite high, and then of course we've got the rest of the pelvis. We've got we'll get a bit of an idea in just a second actually what the pelvis actually looks like, if we could just see the skeleton. But our hips, it's our pelvis, and it's got this sort of socket for your leg, that big leg bone to slot into, which obviously helps us move and gives us that movement and support that we talked about earlier. Okay then, so number 5, so 5 across. The proper name for the skull is the cranium. It's actually the cranium. Maybe you've heard it before, maybe you haven't. Remember there was a board game back in the day actually called Cranium. That was all to do with your mind and your brain and stuff like that. So I think that's always helped me remember that one a little bit more. But you know, we all have our own different ways of remembering specific words and stuff like that. And maybe you'll find something that works for you. Maybe, you know, my way of remembering stuff doesn't necessarily resonate with you. So there's no problem in making up your own ways of remembering stuff, acronyms, rhymes, whatever it might be. And if you do find something, let me know, because of course others might benefit from it in the future. Okay, 8 across. The proper name for the kneecap is the patella. So P-A-T, patella, and that is the kneecap itself. Yeah, not the knee joint, not the bone above or below the knee. That is the actual kneecap itself, and that is the patella. Number 9, protects your heart and your lungs. So we talked about this a little bit when we were looking at the functions of the skeleton. It's the rib cage, the rib or the ribs. If we look at 9 across, ribs would fit in there. Yeah, so we've got ribs. Is protecting our heart and our lungs by creating that sort of cage effect around them and stopping a lot of impact hitting them, really. I mean, I've bruised my ribs before, banging into stuff, hitting off of stuff and stuff like that. That's probably the only time I've ever stopped to really appreciate them and the job that they do, because if I hadn't have been bashing them, I'd have been bashing something so much more important. So yeah, ribs protecting our heart and our lungs. Right guys, okay, so this next clue that we've got, bone in the forearm above the thumb. So we can get a bit of a more in-depth look at this in just a minute once we've done with this crossword. But the bone in the forearm above the thumb. So we actually have 2 bones in the forearm, whereas our upper arm is just 1 bone. There's 2 in the forearm, and obviously they're a little bit narrower. They're a little bit more almost a little bit more delicate, really, I guess. And we're trying to remember which is which. I remember when I was learning all my anatomy and all of that sort of thing when I was doing my PT qualification. Remembering these 2 bones the right way around was one of the bits that I struggled with the most until I figured out again my own little way of remembering it, which I'll share with you when we get there. But the bone in the forearm above the thumb is the radius. Yeah, so the bone in the forearm above the thumb, so 11 across, RADIUS. I-U-S. Yeah, radius. That is from the thumb. Yeah, so this bone here is the thumb. This bone here down the outside of your arm, we'll get to in just a sec. Okay, so the long bone at the top of the arm, this upper arm bone I was on about just a second ago, is the humerus. So maybe you've heard that one before. That is where the name funny bone comes from, the humerus. Unless you bang it really hard of something, then it's not humerus at all. I'm sure we've all been there. But yeah, that's the humerus in the upper arm. Yeah. So again, just like our upper leg, really, I guess where your thigh is, we've got one big bone, just like the upper arm, one big bone, and then like our lower legs, our lower arms exactly the same. We've got those two bones, just like we've got those two bones from the knee down as well, and we'll get to them shortly soon as well. So humerus is the long bone at the top of the arm. Then, like I say, we've got two in the lower leg. So we've got the larger leg bone at the front, the one that would be essentially your shin bone, really. So we've got the shin bone at the front, and the proper term for that is the tibia. Yeah, so we've got the tibia at the front. So T-I-B-I-A, 14 across, which is there at the bottom, would be tibia. Yeah. So tibia at the front of the lower leg. Tibia is the shin. Okay, guys, onto the down clues then. Onto the down clues. Just checking that the chat's updating itself. Right, yeah, okay. So onto the down clues. So the collarbone, this one here, this sort of bony one that you might be able to sort of tap, touch, feel at least. That's the clavicle across there. Yeah, the collarbone. C-L-A-V-I-C-L-E, clavicle. Yeah. This little one here, the collarbone. And then we've got the smaller lower leg bone. So we did the tibia at the front, the shin bone. There's another littler one at the back, and that is the fibula. So fibula. So tibia at the front, fibula at the back. Yeah, tib and fib. Yeah, tibia at the front, fibula at the back. So that was the smaller lower leg bone. The shoulder blade. The shoulder blade obviously sits on our back. You might be able to feel it move. You could probably feel somebody else's move if you had their hands on the back and they were moving their shoulders or whatever. The shoulder blade is the scapula. That's the proper name for the shoulder blade. I'm not sure where that comes from. Probably Latin. Like a lot of them are probably, I guess. Have a look out of curiosity and see if I can find out. Prefix comes from the ancient Greek word from shoulder. Yeah, pretty much a Greek word shoulder. There we go. Yeah, so obviously the shoulder blade plays a big part in a lot of shoulder movements and stuff like that. So the shoulder blade is the scapula. Okay, we've got toes and fingers. So with our hand and our feet, they're very similar. We've got collections of different bones, really, or different types of bones. So we have in our hands we have carpals in the main of our hand. Yeah. Then we have our metacarpals that go off to start our fingers, but are still within the palm. Yeah. And then coming off to make each individual digit itself, you can feel we have smaller little bones together because they actually move. Yeah. So we have our knuckles, we have our joints. So these on the digits themselves, these little bones that you can feel in there, toes and fingers, are called phalanges. Yeah. Now, if you've seen Friends, you might think that a phalange is a part of an aeroplane. It's not. It's part of our hand and it's part of our feet. Yeah. So toes and fingers, phalanges. Yeah. Number 7, long bone at the top of the leg. I mentioned earlier on is the femur, the biggest single bone in the body. meant to be really difficult to break, really painful if you do break it. Yeah, that is the tibia, and that is the one that the femur. Sorry, that is the one that sits into that socket on the pelvis, which gives us our hip joint, which helps us move in the many different ways that, of course, our hips can. Right. Okay. So that was our femur. Last two then, breastbone. So this breastplate. So we have our rib cage comes round, and they connect onto this sort of breastplate that we've got here. I mean, you can even tap and feel it. Maybe you've seen Pulp Fiction, where he has to inject the injector with the adrenaline, and he has to actually puncture this breastplate to get through to the heart that he's trying to inject. So this breastbone here is the sternum. Yeah. So again, maybe you've heard that one before. I used to watch quite a lot of what they call pro wrestling when I was a kid, and it always used to seem, it used to be one of the commentators' favorite words, always being hit with a chair in the sternum. Yeah, so again, that's always stuck with me. Granted, at the time I always knew I knew the word but didn't know where in the body it was. So again, maybe you found that yourself this morning. Maybe there's words that you've heard: cranium, femur, humerus, but you've maybe not known where they are or what they are. And why would you? Why would you really, if especially if you've never gone through something like this and really focused on coming to understand the human body a little bit more. Okay then, guys. So the last one that we've got on there is it's the other tricky one, really. The other tricky one that I was on about in the upper arm, yeah, or in the lower arm, really. I mean, if you were stood up, it would be the lower arm. So we have the radius coming down from the thumb. We have the ulna, so ulna, ulna, coming down from the little finger. Yeah, and even if you cross your hands over or turn your wrist, that's going to be the same. Yeah, still ulna coming down from the little finger, still the radius coming down from the thumb. Yeah, those bones move, but they'll always be in that position in relation to your thumb and your little finger. Yeah, so you can hopefully easily remember which is which when it comes to the ulna and the radius anyway. We'll get a little look at the diagram. We'll get a little look at the what this actually looks like on the human skeleton, and then I'll explain or clue you in on the way that I remember those two in the forearm as well while we're working through. Right, guys, so again, grab yourself a pen and a bit of paper. Don't mind if you want to type. I don't mind if you want to type it on your phone. But all we're going to do now is have a little bit of a recap. So everything that we've just been through, we're going to try and name, or we're going to try and label each number. So we're going to try and, of course, get the whole skeleton done, naming all of those major bones that we've just talked about as well. So have a few minutes. Like I say, right, number one is the skull. If we remember, the proper name was the cranium. So we're like number one, cranium. Move on to number two. If there's any that you're not sure of, leave it and move on. Yeah, move on to something else, and we can go from there instead. Yeah. So just like I say, if you get the first one, we should all have cranium now. Like I say, just work your way down, get the ones that you can, and then you might have a little bit of process of elimination where you think, well, you know, it's got to be this one now because that's the only one left, or, you know, I wasn't sure between that and that, but I've labeled that, so there's only this left, you know, sort of thing. So yeah, same again. I'll give it a couple of minutes, and then I'll start working through and just filling the answers in just a little bit. And as always, guys, I'll mention this now as well, with it being the first week. If there's ever a point where I'm ready to start moving on and I've moved the slides on or whatever it is, but you wanted a little bit more time on the last slide. Maybe it was, you know, to label the last couple of these. Maybe it's to get the last couple of answers on a word search, a crossword, wherever it might be. Even if you're watching live, you can just pause the video. Obviously, the session will continue. You can just press play whenever you're ready, and you'll not be far behind us, really. But yeah, you could always do that. You know, if I'd got to the point where I had 18 of these done, and then someone tried to give me the 19th answer, I'd be wanting to try and get that last one myself. I don't know whether that's just me or not, but well, when I'm nearly done, I want to be done, you know, if that makes sense. So yeah, if you ever need to pause it, you can buy yourself a little bit more time on an activity or a slide or whatever it is, then by all means do, guys. That's not a problem at all. Okie dokie. So, like I say, if you want a little bit more time, pause it there. If not, we're going to roll on, label the skeleton, and then we can start having a look at each individual bone. What jobs does it do in the body when we go back to those initial 4 functions of the body that we talked about? Okay, guys. So number 1, of course, we had cranium. I mentioned that just before I left, just to crack on with it. So we had cranium, which is the skull. Yeah. Number 2, little bit of a curveball, because that is that's the vertebrae in the spine, really. So of course we have our spinal column, really. I guess we have our spine, which we can see labeled in number 8 as well. This spine that makes up our backbone. It is our backbone. It's literally our backbone. But that's not one single bone. That is a lot of different bones put together, and those bones in our back are what we call vertebrae. Yeah, so each bone is a vertebrae, and we stack these vertebrae on top of each other with little bits of cartilage to cushion in between them, and that gives us all of our flexibility in our spine to either go this sort of wobbling side to side. We can bend our back and arch our back. We can push our chest out if we want to. It all comes from movement in the spine. And if we were just one bone, like a rod up our back, we wouldn't have anywhere near as much movement as we do. You've only got to look at, for example, Ronnie Coleman. No, I don't want to say world's strongest man, Mr. Olympia. That was the one. He won a lot of competitions and medals and trophies for being in amazing condition, but he lifted weights that were that heavy across his life. These vertebrae in his spine were getting condensed and crushed and damaged, and his back is now essentially one rod. They've fused that many of these vertebrae together for support, and you've only got to look at that to see the difference it makes, having all these different separate bones in the spine as well. And of course that continues up into our neck as well, which is what we've labeled on number 2. So we have our vertebrae in our back, and we have different segments of the spine, which we can get a look at in just a little minute as well. So yeah, a little bit of a curveball for number 2. That's our cervical vertebrae, yeah, or our cervical spine. And that's pretty much from the shoulders up to the base of your skull, really. We have a few little vertebrae that helps us twist our neck, move side to side, all of that sort of thing. Okay, so back to the ones that we've looked at so far. Number 3 was the clavicle. Yeah, so the collarbone is the clavicle. The number 4 is the humerus, the funny bone in the upper arm. We have the scapula. So if you see number 5, it's kind of pointing through to the other side of the body. We can see that shoulder blade through the ribs, or just sticking out past the ribs, and we can see that it's pointing to that bone that's actually sitting on our back. That is our shoulder blade or our scapula. Yeah. Number 6 was that breastplate that I was talking about, right in the middle of your chest where your ribs connect onto. We can even see here, and from the diagram, the upper ribs come round and join onto the breastplate or the sternum. And then we actually have some lower ribs that don't connect onto anything, which we call floating ribs. Yeah. Little tip there, don't need to worry about that too much as well. But yeah, if you were going to break a rib or crack a rib, it tends to be these lower ones because they've got less support. Yeah, really hard to break one of these ribs higher up, or much harder anyway. Okay, so 6 was the sternum. Number 7 was ribs. Yeah, we've got our ribs. Number 8, as I mentioned before, was our spinal column, which we'll dive into a little bit more in the next couple of slides and break down that spine a little bit more, because that in itself is, like I say, a collection of different bones. So yeah, we'll get into that in just a second. Okay, so into the lower arm. Yeah, the bit closest to your wrist. And we've got the radius and the ulna that I've mentioned a couple of times already this morning. So if we remember, radius and ulna, I used to find remembering the way that these two go around the hardest when it came to the skeleton. I really did. And then my way of remembering it is, if I'm looking at these two words, radius and ulna, and I'm trying to remember which one comes down from me thumb or me little finger, the way that I remembered it was the littler or the shorter of the two words goes with the shorter of the two fingers, yeah, or the little finger, yeah. So the little finger needs the little word, yeah. That's how I remember it. So from the little finger is the ulna, from the thumb is the radius, yeah. Little finger, little word. That's the way that I remember those two. That might work for you, that might not. If you find anything else or think of anything else, again, let me know, because who knows who might find it useful in the future. Okay, cool. So then we're moving down into the hand. So we've got number 11, like I say. So in our hand we have carpals closer to the wrist. Then we have metacarpals in the palm, really, as the hand starts to branch out into separate fingers. We have our metacarpals, and we'll get a look again in a minute and so we can visualize those a little bit better. Big bone in the upper thigh, or the thigh bone, was the femur, yeah. 14 was the kneecap, which is the patella. 15 is pointing at the big old shin bone at the front, which is the tibia. 16 is the smaller bone at the back of the lower leg, which is the fibula. 17, so we're down into the feet. 17, so we're down into the feet, and the setup and the layout is very similar to our hands. So whereas in our hands we have carpals and metacarpals, in our feet we have tarsals and metatarsals, set up in exactly the same way again. Again, the way I remember those, carpals in the hand, maybe you've heard of carpal tunnel syndrome, where you get pain in moving your wrists and your hands and stuff like that. That's where I remember where our carpals are. Tarsals, I always know that they're in our feet, because I remember Wayne Rooney broke one before one World Cup and everybody was absolutely devastated. And it was all over the papers. That was the first time I'd ever heard the word metatarsal, and now all of a sudden everybody was talking about it. But maybe it's an easier way to remember it if those don't really resonate with you as well. I remember tarsals, T for toes, they're in your feet. Yeah. Carpals are the other ones, so they've got to be in your hands. Yeah. Tarsals, T for toes. Could always remember it that way. And then 19 is the pelvis, which, like I mentioned earlier, we can get a bit of a better look at it now. We can see that it doesn't just start where your hip bones are, and your pelvis isn't just where your hip bones are. It actually sort of lets the lower part of your spine sit inside it, really. I guess it's sort of fused on here, and then sort of around and underneath as well, giving us a lot of extra support as well. Yeah. I've known people, or I know somebody who once broke their pelvis right across there. So this bottom bit here snapped clean in two, and then all of that structure, all of that support, all of that shape just gone. Yeah, was just gone. You can't, if that's broken, you're not standing up because you don't have the support. It's got the pelvis on a whole is supporting you. It's not just higher up where the leg bone joins, or where the hip bone joins the spine. I always think of the pelvis. It's sort of like the sort of like a central hub for the body, really. Everything posts through the pelvis, especially signals from the mind to control muscles and stuff like that. It's sort of like part of a really important sort of highway up and down the body, I guess. So yeah, that is all the major bones really, that we need to know, that we need to learn, and that we need to say sort of worry about, but just try and start to try and learn them to memory, I guess, really. I would be absolutely amazed if anybody, even after we just look through them, could sit and remember all of these complicated, more sort of scientific-y sort of names. So yeah, it always pays to keep coming back, keep refreshing, and keep trying to work on some of the tougher ones. Yeah, you might slowly realize some of them you remember really well and really easily. Some of them give you a little bit more trouble, and then you know that you can obviously focus on trying to find your own ways to memorize where those other ones go, or those names for those missing names that are escaping you. Okay then, guys. So let's roll on then. Let's roll on. So we've got in fact, what time will people? Oh, nice one. Cool. So we can maybe even have a little bit of a think about what each of these bones does, really. Like we said, we talked earlier on, so the cranium is going to protect. Yeah, it's protecting vital organs. Let's have a look. What else on there do we think might be protecting something or something important? The patella is protecting something. The kneecap doesn't add movement. The knee would still move the same even if the kneecap wasn't there. It would still bend. The problem that you would bend your knee, and all of your nerves really that are going down to your feet would be exposed. So if you open your knee and you would open your knee up and then kneel on something, without your kneecap, you'd be kneeling straight on the nerves and muscle and stuff like that. So that patella is there to actually protect, and probably even more so than anything else. Of course, we mentioned earlier on that the sternum has given us protection for our heart and our lungs, and our ribs is exactly the same. And to an extent, our spinal column is, like I say, giving us a little bit of protection for like lower back in general, some of the organs that sit a little bit lower on our back, and namely our nervous system, which runs up and down our spine, which that's our body get signals to where it needs to go to tell body parts to do whatever we're telling them to do. Yeah, so we like I say, got to protect our nervous system as well, which our spinal column does to an extent. So the spine, like I mentioned earlier on, there's different sections to the spine. So like I say, at the top here we have the cervical vertebrae. Yeah, so that vertebrae, really its main job, or their main job, is to allow movement of the head, really. Like I say, side to side, tilt it, twist it, circles, whatever. All that movement's coming from those vertebrae in my neck, really. Yeah. So we have 7 vertebrae at the top in the cervical vertebrae. Then we come further down, and the next 12 vertebrae are another section. So at a guess, I'm going to say pretty much all the ribs, all the vertebrae that have ribs attaching to them, really, or that whole section from your neck down to the bottom of your rib cage, that's a different section of your spine. Yeah. and that is the thoracic, yeah, not Jurassic, not Jurassic spine, thoracic spine, yeah, and there is 12 vertebrae in the thoracic spine. Then at the bottom, or lower down, we have the lumbar spine, yeah, so we have 5 vertebrae at the bottom, which is this sort of gap here between the bottom of the ribs and the top of the pelvis. Now, those 5 vertebrae are responsible for most of the movement that we do that comes from our back. Really, we get so much more movement there because there's no bones attaching to them and just the way that they fit together than we do in the upper body. If you think like, if you try and move, it's hard to, it's hard to even sort of visualize really where in your spine you're moving, I guess. But like I say, you'll realize with your upper spine or your thoracic spine, you can really sort of arch it forwards, backwards. You don't get much movement side to side. A lot of that movement comes from your lower back. If I'm trying to lean this way, that's coming from those 5 vertebrae, same that way. You know, those 5 vertebrae at the bottom give us a lot of movement, which is why it's normally that lower section of the back where we get a lot of pain. I tend to find if people have back problems, or the majority of people that have had back problems that I've worked with, it's all been lower back. And again, sometimes it's just from strain from moving and doing more than the rest of the back muscles, depending on the individual. Then at the bottom of the spine, at the very bottom of the spine, we've got 5 that are fused together, which makes the sacrum, yeah, which is this bit that sits snugly in the pelvis, gives us that extra support. And then we've got the coccyx at the bottom, which is the last 4, and that's your tailbone really. So if you've ever sat down too fast and sort of hurt that bony bit at the bottom of your bum or the bottom of your spine, really, that's what that is. That's what you're feeling there. Okay, guys, cool. So we've looked at the ones that give us protection, the bones that give us the most movement. You'd say probably the scapula, definitely, in allowing us to move our shoulders side to side and feel those shoulder blades moving. Even if you can't move your shoulder blades anywhere without it reflecting elsewhere on your body. I'm even just trying to move my shoulder blades together, pushes your chest forward out a little bit. So we get movement from our shoulder blades. We get movement from our phalanges in our hands, being able to pick stuff up, being able to flex our hands, grip stuff. We get movement from, like you say, our leg bones, which literally help us move around the place, you know, and still give us that support as well. When it comes to shape and support, again, you could say the clavicle, the collarbone, that's the one, yeah, the collarbone. The clavicle gives us our shape, gives our shoulder girdle, our shoulder joints a little bit of extra support. What else have we got in there as well? Of course, like we say, movement, a lot of it comes from the spine. We get a little bit of protection from the spine. And then we've got blood cell production going on in the likes of the your femur, your humerus, wherever it might be, producing those blood cells as well. So all of those bones are doing at least one of those 4 jobs that we looked at earlier on, if not both, really. And again, it just goes to show you how important the skeleton is, and definitely how much we take it for granted as well. Okay, guys. Okay, where are we? Right. So we have got it's a little bit to do on the organs in the body. Like I say, next week we're going to be looking at the heart, how the heart works, how it does what it does, why it needs to, and like I say, we can look at other types of muscle in the body as well. Next week we're going to be looking at. So the heart is one type of muscle. We have cardiac muscle, that is the heart, and then we have other types of muscle. We have smooth muscle, which is our organs and our blood vessels. Yeah, it's still muscle. And then, like I say, we have the skeletal muscle, which is the muscle that sits on our frame, on our skeleton, that is responsible for our movements and that we are responsible for moving. Yeah, the muscles that we have direct control over. Those are our skeletal muscles. So we've got different types of muscle. We've got our, like I say, our smooth muscle, which is our organs. And again, we can use this little diagram on the left-hand side. Believe it or not, this isn't an X-ray of someone's actual insides. This is a drawing, but it can give us an idea of where our main organs are, and we can just have a little bit of a talk about what each of them do, really. Because again, I was familiar with a lot of these words, but I didn't know what any of them did until I went away and did me PT course, and even then, they didn't teach us about most of them. So with our organs, a lot of them will actually repair themselves. So if you were, for whatever reason, maybe you go through a phase of drinking quite a lot of alcohol or whatever it might be, and your liver starts to suffer for it, to an extent, if you stop doing the thing that's causing the damage, the organ will actually begin to repair itself as well. I've heard stories of people that have only got one working kidney. They get a transplant and they get a donation and they get a new kidney in, and then the old one that stopped working starts working again. So then they've got 3 working kidneys. Organs in general can start to repair themselves given the chance, and given proper care. Okay, guys, where are we then? So okay, so the first one really, I guess, is the heart. Like I say, we will get a more in-depth look at this next week. The most surprising thing that you might see from the heart just on this diagram is that it's central in the chest. It's not really over to the left-hand side. It's slightly off-center. You would say it's definitely more in the middle than it is over on the left-hand side. And you can tune in again next week to find out why we tend to think, or why it's sort of a common misconception that the heart is on the left-hand side as well. So yeah, we'll look at the heart a lot more next week. I don't want to give away too much today. The esophagus is the tract that food goes down. Yeah, where once you've eaten it, once you swallow, and it leads down into the stomach. It takes food probably up to about 7 seconds to complete that whole journey to work its way down, and into your stomach. But yeah, the esophagus is where food goes. The trachea is where air goes. Yeah, so we can see that the esophagus comes around the back and eventually leads to the stomach, even though we can't see it meet on. The trachea comes down from our head as well, but leads into the lungs. So that's responsible for bringing oxygen in. Another process that we can get a little bit more of a look at next week, because the heart and the lungs work really closely together to do the job that they need to do. Of course, we have the brain, which isn't on the diagram. So this bloke's not going far in a hurry anyway if he hasn't got a brain. But yeah, of course, our brain, beyond the mind-boggling discussion about the self and our own consciousness and stuff like that, it's where we are really, our brain, our mind. It's our body's sort of engine, really, I guess. It's our body's CPU chip. It controls everything else that's going on, voluntary or not. There's always signals being fired out from the brain to the body that's telling that body part to do whatever it needs to do. Sometimes we're in control of that, and it can be, I want to raise my arm. Yeah. Other times we're not in control of that. It could be a total, someone might click their fingers in your face and you might react to it. Yeah. That's just total instinct. That's your brain working quicker and naturally just responding faster than you can even process what's happened, really. The brain is a absolutely fascinating thing that we could spend probably a whole week or a whole course talking about, but we won't. That's all we need to know about the brain. Of course, we know that we need to take care of it. Good, plenty of water and good fats as well. Plenty of like fish fats, omega-3s and 6 and stuff like that. Lungs, like I say, we can have a little bit more of a look at next week, but that is where the oxygen goes when we breathe it in. The lungs actually inflate. If you put your hands on your chest as you breathe in, you might actually feel your chest rise, and that is because the lungs are expanding. If you think about it, if the lungs are expanding and your chest's rising, that means that your ribs are expanding as well, which they actually do, because again, a little bit of a tangent, but I feel like it's worth mentioning, because whenever we see ribs on a diagram, they're on a skeleton. There's no muscle. We actually have muscles that sit in between each individual rib, and they stretch and contract as you breathe, allowing the rib cage to, like I say, grow and shrink. So yeah, that is what you can feel going on when you breathe in. Your lungs expand, your rib cage expands to accommodate it, and as you breathe out, it all sort of sinks back down again. Now again, like I mentioned, the lungs bringing the oxygen in, hand it over to the blood whips around the body and delivers that oxygen to wherever it needs to be. Yeah, and we can go into that a little bit more in depth next week. Of course, liver is to do with cleaning out your liquids, your fluids, all of that sort of thing. It's sort of like it's like the way to describe it. It's like a cleanup plant, really, that your body takes fluids to, and your body will start to sort of sift through them. Of course, the liver takes a lot of damage from alcohol and stuff like that as well, like I mentioned earlier on. So again, we've only got the one. We need to take care of it. Oh, Gary, I've just seen your chat there, buddy. I don't know why I have a cranium. There's nothing up there. I've said for years, mine's empty. Mine's empty. There's like bubble wrap or sawdust or something up there. That's about it. I hope you're doing well, buddy. Nice to hear from you this morning, man. Okay, cool. So moving on to the stomach. Of course, the stomach breaks down our food that we've eaten, and helps our body start to extract good nutrition and vitamins and all those micronutrients and macronutrients, I guess, really, from our food, our proteins, our carbs, our fats. Our stomach dissolves them and breaks them down to make that a little bit easier. Fun fact, you can be the judge of how fun it is, but the stomach acid from our stomachs is strong enough it could burn straight through your own hand. Yeah, it's just a testament to how strong our stomach lining is. And I believe that was actually the inspiration for the Xenomorph's blood in the Alien franchise. You know how it's acid blood? That is where the idea came from, which is pretty cool, actually. You know, it's a lot of the time you see that we get inspiration from nature, and you know, it's not very often. Or we don't realize we can look at the human body and draw inspiration and stuff like that as well. It's quite it sounds really sci-fi, I guess. It sounds really sci-fi that our own stomach acid could burn through our own hand, but we never pay it any thought at all. And that explains as well why when we get a little bit of like acid reflux, why that can really be painful and really quite uncomfortable, you know. So yeah, don't like heartburn's no joke, guys. Get yourself a Gaviscon if you need to. That acid's serious. Okay, then we've got our spleen. Our spleen was always a word that I'd heard of and was familiar with, didn't know what it did. The spleen's actually part of our immune system and plays a big part in the production of and the recycling of blood cells as well. So our spleen, big part of our immune system. Then our kidneys, like I mentioned earlier on, our kidneys, one of them is actually sufficient to do the job. We have two. Like I say, it's not unheard of for people to have two. One doesn't work, you get a transplant. They leave the bad one in, and then sometimes that second one, which is now the third, I guess, kicks in and starts working again. You know, and it does just show these organs can repair themselves given half a chance. What you do with the kidney afterwards, I don't know. Do you keep the three, or do you donate it back and say thank you for loaning us a kidney? I really don't know. I might have to look into that. I don't know what happens then. Okay, guys. Then we've got the intestines. I don't know why the small one is called the small intestine. It's bigger than the large intestine. It's 7 meters long. It absolutely blows my mind how. So I'm not squeamish, but I certainly wouldn't choose to sit and watch someone getting operated on just for the sake of it, But when you see surgeons that can operate in this area and get all of these intestines back in afterwards and sew you up, like, I can't even get the Christmas tree back in the box come January, the box that it's come out of, So like all of these intestines are in there, It's absolutely amazing to me, the work that these surgeons can do anywhere in the human body, that they can open us up, do what they need to do, operate, remove stuff, sometimes add stuff, and sew us up, and we're unconscious, we don't even think about it, and all being well, we just crack on with our lives. But yeah, a little bit mind-blowing, really, I think. So the intestine's job really is to start extracting everything that's left over from the stomach, really. It enters into the intestines and it starts being broken down. The body will pull out the stuff that it can use. It will leave the stuff that it can't or doesn't need, which eventually gets passed through. And we all know where it goes. It all comes out the other end eventually. So the intestines are a big part of actually extracting what we need from our foods as well. And then we have our pancreas is the last one, which releases digestive hormones and digestive enzymes, and different hormones and different chemicals into the blood as well, including insulin as well, when we're talking about sort of blood sugar levels and all of that sort of thing as well. So yeah, all of these organs are doing, to be fair, a pretty specialized job in the body, and a lot of them are doing them alone. They don't have a backup. The only thing that I can think of where you've got a spare is a kidney, and even then, we're better off having two. Otherwise, when someone drops down to one, we wouldn't be putting a transplanted one in. But yeah, that just gets us a little bit more familiar with our organs. Maybe we can now visualize a little bit more what's going on inside, which I think again helps us understanding our own body, which helps us, take care of it, and again, sort of picture the way that good choices or bad choices in terms of food and exercise or not exercising might actually start to affect the body as well. So yeah, some interesting facts there to do with our organs, and that is about everything really that we needed to run through this morning. To be fair, that's a good little point to sort of wrap up there. Of course, if you guys have any questions or anything, please do pop them in the chat. Or if you're watching this later on, just drop me an email and we'll go from there. And I'll just get back to you as soon as I can, really. So yeah, don't forget, guys, that of course this is session 1. All of these sessions will still work going forward. So, give it a month, 2 months, when the course is finished, you might want to come back and refresh some of the knowledge about, the skeleton or our organs and stuff like that as well. So yeah, keep the links handy, save the links somewhere, but if you ever need them and you can't get them, let me know and I'll send you just all the sessions that have ran so far. Yeah, so if we're 4 weeks in, I'll send you the 4 weeks that have ran so far. If you potentially sign up when the course is just about finished, again, I'll send you everything that's ran so far so you can get caught up when you can. So don't stress about being able to watch live, guys. We all have other responsibilities. That's it. The beauty of being online is you can come back, watch these when it suits you, and fit it around these other responsibilities that you might have. Or, even just some of us prefer learning at a different time of day. I can think of even just certain friends that if I was trying to sit them down and talk to them about anything at like 10 o'clock in the morning, they'd just be like, oh, no, thank you. It's too early for this. So, by all means, do watch it back whenever you're feeling more engaged with the material and the resources. And like I say, record it whenever you want, and you can come back and you can refresh whenever you want to as well. So yeah, don't be worried about dropping me an email and say, Rob, can you just send us over everything, like all the sessions so far, or all the links to them anyway. And then yeah, it's just handy to be able to come back and sort of revise everything, I guess. Right, guys. Okay, where are we? So yeah, just to make sure that they do get filled in, just to point you towards that survey again. It's not even 30 seconds to do them, guys. And like I say, it gives us some important information that not only lets us fill in paperwork on your behalf, so we haven't got to ring you and pester you about all of that sort of thing. You know, it actually gives us obviously your feedback, which is always important, and we like to know what we're doing well, where we can improve. It's also handy for being able to go out and say, you know, these sessions are having this impact on people, to keep them running and stuff like that as well. So yeah, please don't forget to do those survey, guys. It's not even 30 seconds to do them, and then they're done. To be fair, that's really the only thing that you need to worry about too much. Beyond that, guys, there is there should be in the link to the video. I'm just going to have a look now and double check. There should be a link to today's workbook as well. If you don't have a link to today's workbook, let me know, and again, I'll send you that workbook out. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. So it's pages 2 and 3 of this first workbook. So I'll load that up, guys, and have a look at what that is going to look like. So we can go to how the body works. Cool. Nice one. So this is the workbook that you're looking for. If you haven't got it or can't find it, like I say, let me know, and I'll get that out to you. So how the body works. So in this unit, you will learn the functions of the skeletal and muscular system, functions of the cardiorespiratory system, and the requirements of a healthy diet as well, which is going to be the next few weeks. So all you need to do for pages 2 and 3, so this should be page 2, I'm guessing. Yeah, that's page 2. So for page 2, you're just drawing a line and connecting these answers, really. So can you match the correct function of the skeleton with the correct definition? Yeah. So protection, have a read through and see which of those sounds like more to do with protecting stuff, really. Yeah, so there's 5 of them. We've separated shape and support, but yeah, you're just matching those up. Page 3, identify the functions of the muscular system. You can have a look at this week. Like I say, see if you can again pair them up as well. Correct function with the correct definition. And then that's all you need to worry about for this week. So pages 2 and 3 in that workbook, by next week, or by the time you watch session 2, I'll get round to session 2, and then we're going to move on next week and look at the heart and how it works and all of that jazz as well. So if I can just stop sharing that. Cool. Nice one, guys. Right, so like I say, that'll wrap us up quite nicely, actually. So if I just go back to the PowerPoint, just so if you ever need to come back and think, oh man, what pages was I doing in my workbook this week? Come back to the PowerPoint and just come to this last slide. It'll always be the last slide that we look at, just letting you know what to do over the next week. Just again, so it's nice and easy for you to come back and just see what it is that you should be doing. And yeah, guys, we will be back next week. We'll be next Wednesday, 10 o'clock till 12 o'clock, including the fitness video as well. Which reminds me, don't forget to check out this week's fitness video. It's just a nice stretch. It's a good chance to get moving again, get active, get your blood flowing, maybe loosen up some tightness, or some stiffness, and yeah, just sort of just start moving forward, I guess. Start trying to build a little bit of momentum. You know, everybody started somewhere, and we all have to start from our own place where we are right now. that might be just having a nice little stretch and getting moving. If you want something a bit more intense, follow that link and pick one of the different videos. There's all sorts on there, guys. There's something for everybody. So yeah, don't forget to check out the fitness video. Please don't forget to do the survey. My email is in the description if you need it for whatever reason. And we will be back, like I say, next Wednesday, same time. We're going to be looking at the heart, how it works, and the job that it does within the human body as well. Yeah, cool. Okay, guys. So you know where I'm at. Reach out to me in the meantime if you need me before next Wednesday. Get in touch with one of the guys in the office if you want to, or if you're not sure, they'll always pass a message on to me, and it'll get to where it needs to be. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the first session that we've done. I know we've sort of jumped straight in at the deep end. Like I say, just like keep this ball rolling, keep a little bit of momentum going, and we're going to look at the heart next week. Before you know it, we're going to be into food labels, and we can start making some real drastic changes to our sort of day-to-day life, even if those drastic changes are baby steps at the same time. It's gradual. It could be big changes that come very, very slowly, trickles. But the way I think about it, guys, and I say this to everybody, think about, rather than trying to change everything at once and make everything perfect all at once, just try and be that little bit better. You know, if you're thinking to yourself, oh man, I don't eat enough fruit and veg, I don't get enough sleep, I don't exercise enough, I don't drink enough water, don't try and do all of those things like immediately. Pick one. Think, right, this week I'm gonna drink more water. Next week I'm gonna drink more water and exercise 3 times. The week after, and you just keep building on top of it, and it's much more sustainable, and you can be much more consistent with it. And within a year, that's still 52 new habits that you've got if you're bringing in something new each week, while giving them a chance to sort of become routine as well. So don't put that much pressure on yourself. We want this to be real sustainable change. We're trying to, the way that I think about it is, your body, your physical body, is sort of like a reflection of our choices and our behaviors, and the way that we feel and the way that we look will only change for as long as those behaviors do. It's why you see people who will go on quite a strict diet, they'll lose a load of weight, that diet goes out the window because they're where they want to be, and then there's no middle ground, so they just slowly fall into old habits. If you're falling into old habits, sooner or later you're going to be fitting in, like wearing old clothes again, you know, because you'll just be going back to that point. You'll be feeling how you used to as well, you know, that's as important as anything, our well-being and our sort of internal outlook, I guess, and the way that we're feeling on the inside is, like I say, much more important than how much we weigh. So yeah, baby steps, guys, baby steps, little small changes, and we build on it. We build on successes rather than give ourselves so much challenge that we set ourselves up for failure, really. And there we go. I'll leave you with that for the next week. Something to think about. Okay, guys, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for logging in. Thank you for choosing to learn really media savvy, and for spending your time with us and with me. You know where I'm at if you need me in the meantime. Stay safe, look after yourself and those around you, and we will be back next Wednesday to look at our next session and go that little bit deeper. Okay, Gary, see you later on, buddy. Thanks for dropping in this morning, mate. Everybody else, see you later on. Take care, and we'll be back next week. See you later. Bye.